Hello everyone. Today I have a bit of a different video for you all, which you can probably tell given the title and the thumbnail and the fact that you can actually hear my voice for once. That being said, if you somehow ignored all of that, this is going to be a non-spoiler review of the new Star Wars novel Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. For those out of the loop, or those new to Star Wars books in general, or those who just have somehow forgotten what this is, even though they've already read the book and just wanted to see what I thought of it, I'll summarize briefly. Light of the Jedi is the first novel in what is going to be a multimedia publishing campaign for the High Republic era of Star Wars, set about 200 years before The Phantom Menace and the prequel films. The project is going to have many different authors writing novels, young adult books, children's books, even manga, all with the intention of telling one large interconnected story. The time period, the High Republic, shows the Jedi at the height of their power, with basically no one to oppose them, no Sith, no Mandalorians to fight. Everything's going great in the Republic until a hyperspace disaster unveils a new enemy to them, the Nile. Will the Jedi be able to get to the bottom of these mysteries, uncover what the Nile are up to, and save the day? Well, probably, given that we know the prequel films will happen, but nevertheless, this book is incredibly interesting, and I encourage anyone who is an avid reader of Star Wars canon material, or even someone who has never picked up a Star Wars book, to read this. It is fantastic. Again, I'm going to try to keep spoilers to a minimum, but I will be talking about plot points that have been put in the trailer and publishing announcements that Lucasfilm has put out. Pretty much any details that are known to the press beforehand, those are fair game. So if you want to go in with basically no assumptions or information beyond what I've already said, feel free to turn this video off and come back later. But for now, I'm going to get into my review. Charles Soule has done a lot of stuff for Star Wars as of late. He wrote the Lando comic, which was surprisingly great. He wrote the Vader comic, or I should say one of them, which I think is probably my favorite of all the Vader comics they've put out recently. And he also wrote the Rise of Kylo Ren comic, which honestly I wish a lot of that was worked into the sequel films themselves. All in all, he's just a great author, and the thing I think he does best is he's very good at visualizing the Force, and what this book stresses more than pretty much any other Star Wars thing before it is that everyone has their own ways of seeing and using the Force, and all of them are valid. As fun as the meme, "That's not how the Force works" from Force Awakens is, it honestly feels a little bit obsolete at this point, because yeah, if the Force is everything, and everything is the Force, surely there aren't really many limitations on how you can use it. Another great aspect of this book is the Jedi themselves. They're not that dissimilar from the Jedi of the Clone Wars, but in contrast to the prequel films, they're much more three-dimensional characters. They laugh, they get annoyed, they have personality, they don't have to be stoic all the time. I know that other material fleshed out characters like Mace Windu or Plo Koon or Qui-Gon Jinn, but really you didn't get a lot of the Jedi just being human beings. Even the aliens, you know what I mean. They have feelings, you see them, but they don't let their feelings control them, and that's what makes them such effective characters. And there's a lot of characters in these books. So I'm just going to go over kind of the general overview of the plot and what I thought of each of the main elements. The book starts off with what is being described as the Great Disaster. Something goes wrong with hyperspace, sending many objects hurtling at near the speed of light towards several inhabited worlds and stations, and the Jedi and the Republic are called in to do what they can to help. This plays out like a very standard disaster movie, but it actually works to its advantage. You get a lot of quick cutting between different perspectives, different people. The Jedi, the people on the ground, the people in the stations who are figuring out what's happening and trying to inform the right people. All of this is building up the information that the reader has to paint a clearer picture of what's going on. Another great thing about these opening chapters, and really the entire part one of the book, which focuses on the disaster itself, is that you don't just get a focus on the Jedi. There's a lot of normal people who are doing their best, coming together to prevent the loss of life where they can. Captains, technicians, analysts, admirals, senators, they're all doing what they can to help out. And it's great to see the cooperation. The Clone Wars was an amazing show, but you also got a lot of the Jedi being closed minded and just not accepting help when they could, thinking they need to handle this on their own, that the war is their problem and they should not inform the Senate and the public of some of their more concerning findings. Here, though, the Jedi, the Senate, and the ordinary people all come together to try and do what they can to help out as many people as possible. And it's great. As for the characters themselves, there are a lot of people in this book, and it can be difficult to keep track of them at times, especially in the beginning. I would personally recommend going to StarWars.com and looking at some of the concept art for these characters, either while you're reading the book or beforehand, just so you can get a clearer picture of them in your mind when you're reading the names, especially since many of the Jedi will leave for certain periods of the book and come back, and when they do, it can kind of be difficult to remember exactly what they look like just based off the description themselves. The concept art also can help out because several of the main characters are aliens, which I love. I've wanted more alien Star Wars characters in the forefront of these stories, and this book delivers. You've got a Wookiee Jedi, a Trandoshan Jedi, an Ithorian Jedi, a Nautolan captain, all of these guys working together, and it's great. You even get some fun interactions with the Wookiee Jedi Buryaga as he struggles to comfort people who can't understand a word he's saying, because basically no one except his master speaks Shriwook. Even minor characters like the Trandoshan Jedi Skier are very compelling in the little dialogue they have. Skier in particular is not a main character in this novel, and doesn't look like he'll be a main character in many of the novels, but is one of the key players in the High Republic comic, the first issue of which I've picked up. And let me just tell you, that comic is equally compelling and a very nice companion piece to this book, which you should definitely read after this book, given that there are quite a few spoilers in it. As for my favorite Jedi, Loden, Greatstorm, and his apprentice Bell are definitely standout characters. Loden in particular is just so likable and mischievous in a way. He reminds me a lot of Anakin Skywalker. The way he pushes his apprentice is very casual, with leaping into danger and both metaphorically and in some cases literally pushing his apprentice into danger in order to teach him and help save the day. He's just an all-around great character, and Bell is also quickly growing in the first book, and I will be very interested with where the various authors in this multimedia project take him in particular. Avar Kriss is also a very interesting character with Elzar Mann, her longtime Jedi partner. They are an intriguing duo, to say the least. It's very much implied they have a history together, possibly romantic, but they've put it aside because, well, they're Jedi and they're not allowed to do that. And yet the way they are able to communicate and talk to one another, not through the Force, but just through the little glances they give one another, it really shows a tight bond, similar to something Anakin and Obi-Wan might have had. In particular, I like that Elzar Mann seems obsessed with finding new and interesting ways to use the Force, much to the Council's minor disapproval. They don't forbid it by any means, because they're trying to be more open-minded with this time period, but at the same time, they often feel perplexed and frustrated by Mann's frequent attempts to delve deeper into the Force, something he personally sees as an endless sea full of possibilities. And as I touched on earlier, that's a great thing that Charles Soule does. He shows how every individual sees the Force differently. Chris might see it as a song. Mann sees it as an endless ocean. Buryaga sees it as a leaf on an endless tree rooted into the ground. All of these characters have different perspectives, and it informs not only what they do with the Force, but how they act as characters. It's really compelling. As I also stated before, the Republic itself is pretty interesting. It's not as though the Outer Rim is completely unexplored, like a lot of early press material might have been hinting at. No, the Outer Rim is populated. It's just that They're only just setting up hyperspace routes that allow them to get the necessary supplies to those outposts. Without these supplies, the planets are effectively cut off from the rest of the Republic, and as the Chancellor at the time states, if the planets get cut off, well, that's basically the Republic gone. The Republic works because it is a group of planets that support each other. They can't survive as a cohesive unit if they're divided. But really, the thing that surprised me the most about this book were the villains, the Nihil. The term that's frequently been thrown around to describe them is space Vikings. And in broad strokes, yeah, that's appropriate. They're raiders, they're marauders, they're violent warriors who will bathe themselves literally in the blood of their enemies. And sometimes their teammates. They're vicious, they take what they want, and thanks to their leader, Marchion Ro, and secrets only he seems to possess, they're able to access hyperspace in ways previously unknown to basically everyone else in the Republic. This allows them to appear and disappear at seemingly a moment's notice, which makes them a particularly difficult foe for the Jedi and the Republic to take head on. What surprised me most about the Nihil was their hierarchy and structure. I wasn't expecting much in the way of structure, given their organization being described as Vikings in space, but to my utter amazement, I was very compelled at the way this crew was set up, how power was divided, how organized they were, and at first it seems very arbitrary and maybe even a little bit contrived. If these guys are so vicious and wild, how can they possibly support such a regimented system? And yet the book does a very good job of walking you through why it's such an ingenious system and how it not only helps them grow and stay strong, but also helps keep their leader, Marchion Ro, in power. Ro himself is a very interesting character. At first he seems like he might be a bit, not underwhelming, but surprisingly weak for a Star Wars villain. Unlike Vader or the Emperor, he doesn't command a lot of physical power himself, and even his forces are not that unbeatable. They're not ready to take the Republic and the Jedi head on, not really. And so you're wondering exactly how he's going to achieve any of his lofty goals that he keeps referencing, albeit not specifically, and how he's going to be an overarching villain for this story. But sure enough, Charles Soule does a great job slowly taking you deeper and deeper into his plan, his psyche, his character, and show you that he knows what he's doing. He's a mastermind on the level of a Palpatine or a Maul in the Clone Wars, or maybe even a Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's several steps ahead, and he has a plan. This guy is a character to keep your eye on. Another frequent criticism of this era by people who have not actually read any of the material is that, well, why are we elaborating on a time period in Star Wars if there isn't an actual war going on? And to that I say, pshaw. Whatever you want to call this era, there's a war going on. There is a lot of bloodshed in this one book. I mean, the body count gets up there with some of the bloodiest episodes of the Clone Wars or the movies themselves. People die, and some in quite intense ways. All in all, though, that's not why I love this book. It's one of the reasons, but the main reason I love it is because it's something new. It's something new, and despite all the darkness and intensity this book offers, it shows something we don't really get to see all that much in Star Wars. We get to see everyone, the Jedi, the Republic, normal folks, all coming together, uniting in a common interest, some in an alliance of convenience, some because it's the right thing to do, joining together to take on this horrible adversary who themselves are a bit of an underdog in the whole debacle. It's just a great book, all in all, and I look forward to everything this era has to offer. If even half of the new releases in the High Republic publishing campaign are half as good as this book, this might just be my new favorite period in all of Star Wars. Because it's so fresh and new and references so little of what came before it, I feel comfortable for probably the first time in a while recommending this book to any and all Star Wars fans. If you haven't read a single novel yet, pick this one up. I think it's a good place to start. I just think it's a good story for basically everyone. That's my review. I hope you give this novel a chance. Have you already read it? Let me know if you liked it in the comments below. Until next time, if there is a next time for this sort of thing, take care, guys.